WWE Wrestlepalooza 2025 takes place on Saturday in Indianapolis, the first to air as part of this new ESPN deal with WWE. So hopefully everyone can actually find a way to watch this thing. There are 5 matches on the card, no surprise, and we're going to get to predictions for all 5 of them. Let's jump into it. We start with the tag team match. The Usos are going to take on Bron Breakker, and Bronson Reed. We know this thing's been going on for a bit between the Vision and Jey Uso, but now we do have the Usos reunited, and I think it's something where clearly a lot of the focus is on this continued sort of evolution of the Vision and Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed as sort of single stars, but also everything's about the evolution of Jey Uso, and that has been the big story on Raw for the past little bit, is what exactly is going on with Jey. Everyone has had different opinions. Quickly people saying, Jey's turned heel. That's not the case. Jey is just simply looking out for himself now, right? He is someone who is wrestling, I think, with the idea of what it's like to get all the way to the top, achieve a level of success that no one ever thought you could achieve, and now you've lost that. You've lost the World Heavyweight Championship. And so, what do you have to do to get it back? If you do the same thing you've always done, that's not working. So you have to do something different. And so we're seeing the way they're kind of telling the story with Jey Uso here, where it's all about developing the idea that Jey is trying to find that way back to the top. And does that come as sort of trying to replicate what Roman Reigns did to get to the top? And, they do the mysterious phone call with who was Jey talking to, all the back and forth with Jimmy about, Jimmy's having to tell Jey, look, I don't see the Ula follow around your neck. And so they've been building the tension. As I always say, anytime anyone gets back together in WWE, you have to quickly put the tension right back in to make sure we know that there is a possibility that they could break up at some point in the future. They're already doing that with Jimmy and Jey, and they just reunited on Raw. So, to me, the story of this match is going to be pretty simple. I think your winners are, without question in my eyes, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. I think that they are winning this match because they need to win this match. They lost the tag team match to Roman and Jey at SummerSlam. This is a big show, as I said, in terms of, a lot of perhaps new eyes on this show when you're talking about the ESPN integration and all that. But I think you want to establish sort of a dominant stretch here for the two Brons, and I think they're going to win. But the bigger question is, who is going to take the pin here? Who is going to be the person that causes the Usos to lose this match? It seems like the simple idea is, well, Jimmy gets pinned, Jey gets pissed, and off we go and continue this whole theme with Jey about how he has to look out for himself. But there's also the other idea of maybe there is something that happens here where Jey gets pinned, and then that also allows Jey to get more frustrated because maybe it was something Jimmy did, and that's going to question Jey going back into the tag team route. Why not just stay as a single star? Why not just keep yeeting around the world by himself? And so I think you're going to have a lot of questions for Jey coming out of this one way or the other, but I think the finish here seems pretty decisive in terms of giving the win to Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. All right, the women's championship, as we know, is vacant. No one holds the women's world title right now. Naomi off having Big Jim's children. And meanwhile, it's Stephanie Vaquer, who was supposed to challenge Naomi, Clash in Paris, who is going to take on the former champion in Io Sky. Speaking of people who have had plenty going on Raw, that is not the case for Stephanie Vaquer, but it is the case for Io Sky, who we know is kind of in the middle of this entire saga with Asuka and Kairi Sane, and we're trying to figure out exactly how this is all going to play out. Asuka is ready to destroy anyone and everyone who gets close to Io. She has no problem telling Io that, she doesn't think she's going about this the right way. And I love what Asuka's been doing. And of course, Kairi, I think for most people, has been sort of the MVP sometimes of these segments because of just her reaction when Asuka's yelling for her and just trying to kind of be in the middle of this entire thing and not really wanting to pick a side here because it is two of her longtime friends. But I think this is one where, again, you kind of have two options here. It's, are you going to tie in the story of Io Sky versus Asuka into the championship, Or is that something where you don't really need the title to tell that story? You guys probably know where I'm headed with my answer on that. But I think we're clearly in that period still where if you look at Asuka and look at Kairi, they are still a duo as of right now, right? And I think you're going to get some of those reluctant tag team possibilities where Kairi doesn't want to get in the ring against Io, right? But Asuka's going to force her to do that in tag team settings. And that's where does Rhea Ripley and Io eventually team up? We said that kind of coming out of, a couple of these shows this summer. We thought that was definitely a direction you could see, is where eventually they're going to have to team up against someone. Maybe it would have been tag team championship scenario, something like that. But now it seems like Asuka and Kairi, at least in the short term, are going to be some of those potential options. So I think that they have to get to that at some point soon. And so for me, I don't think you need the women's world title around Io's waist again to be able to tell that story. Would it be a great one? Sure it would. Asuka eventually getting the championship back or something like that, and maybe starting, kind of a new dominant run here. Sure, that would be entertaining. I mean, Asuka's Asuka. She's fantastic. But I think, to me, the better story moving forward is to sort of contain that in its own world, keep having Rhea kind of centered around it. They've had the stuff with Nikki Bella. Like, they've brought other people into this sort of universe that they're telling the story in. But I think the best path forward is, as I said a minute ago, this whole thing with ESPN and WWE and why this is such a historic show. You want to do things on this show that are simply going to be memorable. And I think if you want that and want the long-term value out of Wrestlepalooza, Stephanie Vaquer winning the title and this being something you can point back to throughout her entire WWE career. This was sort of the defining moment for her. When she finally won the championship, she's doing it in front of this, again, audience that it's the first show on ESPN. This is always going to hold historical value in the history of WWE. It's going to happen because it's only the first time. You only get this chance once, right? And so Vaquer needs to win this match, I think, and I think she does. I'm going to pick Stephanie Vaquer to be the new champion, and that also opens up a lot of possibilities where you can still tie all of that with Io into Stephanie Vaquer. You can have matches with Vaquer and Asuka, and perhaps, we've already had the one with Kairi, but you could do Stephanie Vaquer versus Asuka as kind of a first strong potential title defense for the new champion. Rhea Ripley, we know, is one match that they are going to eventually get to that. Do they see that as a WrestleMania level match? I don't see why they wouldn't at this point, based on kind of the star power of both of those women. So I think that's a lot of stuff you can do with Vaquer as champion. So I'm going to pick her to win this one and claim the vacant women's world title. Speaking of tag team matches, the one that so many people have been waiting for, we've been waiting over a decade, for the return of AJ Lee to the ring, and she will team up with CM Punk to take on Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch here. This, again, is a match that throw out anything you want in terms of what your expectations are for a professional wrestling match. This, to me, is what it's all about. It's about having a huge story like this and being able to tell it through the lens of professional wrestling, right? The huge return of someone whose star power cannot be denied at this point. When we bring up all the views and all these millions upon millions of social media engagements and views all over the world, AJ Lee's star power cannot be denied at this point. And so this, to me, is the most fascinating match on this card. It's the one I'm most looking forward to, and I would say a lot of people are probably going to say that, just based on, again, the freshness of this versus what we'll get to in a minute is the main event, which is still a huge match, but it doesn't have that same feel of what this actually is. And I think when you look at it, the stuff where I feel like the entire WWE universe here can get exactly what they want and get kind of both things out of it. And to me, that means you get the hatred between Punk and Rollins, who are going to go at each other here like it is a world championship match, except it's not. They're going to be able to duke it out in the ring to finally try to settle their own score here, even though we know it's far from finished. They still have to have that one-on-one match for the championship. But you get the hatred built in between those two, but you also get those big moments with AJ here, where, you're going to allow her to be in that position where she's probably not going to be working the entirety of this match. She's not going to be in there for 20 minutes, because you want to kind of save some of that for when they do the eventual one-on-one match with her and Becky Lynch, which again is also going to come at some point soon. And so I think this entire setup here is to build to the big moments for AJ, whether that's your hot tag late in the match, Punk's down and out, can he get over there and make the tag? You can already see it. You can see it playing out already, and I think that's one where it's kind of deniable here, again, what that moment could be for the crowd there. It's going to be a huge moment to see her come in and really go at Becky Lynch, and I think that's where, in the end here, I just feel like there is only one possibility of how this can play out. Now, before I tell you which one that is, I could also certainly see the scenario where, hey, AJ's just now returning. Becky is being Becky right now. She's the man, and maybe AJ's not quite there yet in terms of being able to topple someone like Becky Lynch, right? You're not going to have Punk pin Rollins, I don't think. It's not necessary. Punk should still get a title match at some point. You're not going to have Rollins pin Punk because I think that would be the most absurd result in this whole thing. But I think that, to me, having AJ pin Becky is simply the easiest way to go about your business here and get to the next big thing, which the next big thing is not just Brock Lesnar on this card, but it is AJ versus Becky in the one-on-one match. For AJ to be able to earn that match, you can have her beat Becky here, have her pin her, and even if AJ doesn't go on to win the Intercontinental Championship, because I don't think that's really even necessary, but even if that doesn't happen, you give a reason for that match to exist, and this is the way to do it. You know, I've heard some people even say, hey, you know, again, have Becky come out, beat AJ, and then, you know, AJ can still try to eventually get that, you know, elusive win against Becky. No, don't do that here. Don't, because you don't want to just immediately take away all that kind of momentum that AJ has here. I see no reason whatsoever to beat her in this match. I don't care how long she's been gone, this professional wrestling. People have come back all the time and won matches after a decade away or years and years away. It's okay. We don't have to act like this isn't something where this would be, again, a great moment to have AJ come back, get a win here, set up a big match with Becky in the future. It's so easy. And I don't think that this needs to be overthought here. I don't think we need to overcomplicate what this match can be. AJ Lee wins. She pins Becky Lynch. I think that's the route you go in this tag team match. All right. Cody Rhodes defends the WWE Championship, the Undisputed WWE Championship. I don't know if they're still using the Undisputed or not. It's debatable. But he's going to defend it against Drew McIntyre. And, you know, as I'm looking through this card, and I talked about this in our predictions we did for the takedown on SI. You can find that on YouTube as well. I talked about the need I feel like WWE always has to have some sort of surprising or shocking moment on a show. And because this is a show of such a big magnitude, right, I just like, they have to do something. I feel like somewhere where it's kind of that buzzworthy thing coming out of it. And it could just simply be something they do in the main event. But we'll get to that in a second. But I think this is one where I'll go ahead and just give you my prediction now. I think Cody Rhodes is going to retain the title. But I was debating this when we did the show there on the Takedown on SI about how I think if you're going to have one of those moments, Drew McIntyre, I feel like is sort of in a spot where it's like, you kind of feel like it's must win for Drew because is he just going to keep losing these big opportunities, right? But it's also something where Cody just won the title and he just came back. And it's the first show on ESPN. Do you want to have Cody lose? I don't think you do. But I'm just saying here that this is one where I'm like, I feel like there's probably a lot you could do if you have a shocking moment on the show where Drew just simply somehow finds a way to beat Cody. Cody's not at 100%. He got Claymored. The man's been away for a while, but maybe he, just simply is not back in ring shape just yet after filming Street Fighter and all. You could play around with a lot of different ideas. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think Cody's absolutely going to win. But it's more so my argument that I think we should have more of these shocking type moments, right? More of these world title reigns, WWE title reigns that don't feel necessarily predictable. And I know we just had a little bit of, some of that, I would say. Not all the elements of that. We had some of that throughout the past couple months where the title went from Jey to Gunther. to Rollins to Punk, or Punk to Rollins. We had a lot of people hold that title in a short time span. But I think it's more of the long-term thing, I think, when it comes to someone like Cody and the need to really feel like, hey, we have to find ways to protect Cody. I still am looking at Drew McIntyre and saying this guy has to have a top-tier title run at some point within the next year. Maybe that's not now. Maybe there's a way to get to the rematch, and then perhaps Drew wins it away from Cody. Because I also think there's something you could do with Drew McIntyre that plays into the main event here in just a second. But I'm just, again, saying I don't mind the idea that sometimes it's okay to not have these lengthy title reigns. And I know we do have the World Heavyweight Championship to prove that here recently. They've been a little bit more flexible on that than I think they were early in Triple H's era in terms of this era of WWE. I think you had a lot of those long title reigns and just sometimes felt like you were never, ever even giving a second thought as to who was going to win some of these matches. This one is probably that way for a lot of people. Cody wins, let's proceed to the next thing. But I think Drew is just at a point where it's eventually you want to see him win one of these type of matches, win one of these big type feuds like this against a Cody, right? He lost the one against Punk last year. The thing against Damian Priest, I can't remember now, did he win or lose that feud? But it's like that wasn't to the level of Punk. That isn't to the level of Cody. It's not a knock on Damian Priest, just simply looking at the star power aspect. And so I think Drew needs to, at some point, be the WWE champion. And maybe that's within the next 6 months. Maybe that's within the next year. The timing is probably not now. But I'm just saying, I don't mind the idea that sometimes WWE could pull off a shocking moment, a shocking title change, just to do it. Don't know if that's going to be here, though. I'm going to pick Cody Rhodes to retain the title against Drew McIntyre. And maybe this could be one where not necessarily we do get a decisive finish. And maybe they do this again at Crown Jewel or something like that. I could see multiple matches in this feud without a doubt. All right, that does lead us to our main event. John Cena, Brock Lesnar. The rivalry that we all know has existed for multiple decades now in WWE. Lesnar made his surprising return at SummerSlam, and they're going to do this thing. And like I said, I don't really, in ranking this, this is not the one I'm most looking forward to. I think I could even make an argument I could put this behind Cody and Drew McIntyre, to be honest with you. And that's not a knock on either guy. It's just, I think with Brock, to me, it's kind of the point where, outside the ring stuff aside that has been talked about plenty, it's just, I think I've seen everything with Brock that I feel like I could possibly see because of all the different returns he's had over the years, right? I'm just like, you kind of know how this goes now. And sure, these, there's been different variations of him in terms of how they presented him and those kind of things, but like at a certain point, you just kind of know how this is going to play out. And for me, if you're trying to pick a winner here, like I don't really have the need to see another John Cena versus Brock Lesnar match, knowing that we are down to the final chapter here, basically, of the John Cena retirement tour. I don't need to see multiple matches with Brock Lesnar before we get to December. And so for that reason, I think I'm going to pick John Cena, and I'm really trying to make that happen because I don't know that I want to see a rematch here. Because again, I feel like I've seen everything I sort of need to see with Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, and really just, I think, this iteration of Brock Lesnar, And that's, like I said, not to say that there haven't been things that when he's made these comebacks, of course they make an impact. And of course this is a scenario where if you're ESPN, you're looking at John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. That's one of the biggest matches WWE could do from a box office perspective in 2025. And so, I get all that. But, there's a difference, obviously, in me just sitting here ranting about what I would like to see happen versus the business aspect. And so, either way, I think John Cena needs to win. And I don't know if Brock Lesnar coming back, destroying John Cena, is really the way that I hope this thing goes. Because we are, as I said, down to the stretch run here for Cena. And I don't know that I want to just see him get his ass kicked again by Brock Lesnar. I've seen that before, and I've seen it quite a bit. And I just don't know if that feels fresh enough to me to get into this final run for Cena, to where you're building up to something huge. You have to for the final match in December. And it does kind of tie into what I said a minute ago with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. They're not going to do Cody versus Cena again. There's no reason to. But if you're looking at potential final opponents, for me, I'm down to 2. You guys know all along I pushed the idea of Cena versus Gunther. and how they could play up sports entertainment versus professional wrestling. But if Gunther were to not be available, currently sidelined right now, I think Drew McIntyre is probably the next best choice, because that was a match that, if you go back, a year and a half ago, we did our WrestleMania 41 predictions a year out. I said, if you're looking at a potential final WrestleMania opponent for John Cena, I went with Cena versus Drew McIntyre as my early WrestleMania 41 prediction, because I like the idea of putting Drew in that spot and giving him that big moment. But they haven't done that yet. They've kept these two away from each other. But they do, in the same world on SmackDown, have to interact and have these sort of big moments. Right now, I say they've kept away from each other. Sure, there have been interactions. You've had certain things. But in terms of like that true one-on-one, hey, we're setting up to a big match between us, you've not really had that type of level yet. And so that's why I think coming out of this, I don't need to see Cena and Lesnar run it back. I just don't. Like, I'd rather Cena get to something else and then get closer to, again, the grand finale, which could be McIntyre, could be Gunther, could be someone else we're not even thinking of. And I just feel like, for me, Cena winning here is the best choice to get there, because Lesnar winning, then what, right? Like, okay, you give me either a rematch with Cena and Lesnar, or Lesnar becomes the number one contender for Cody. I don't need to see that either, honestly. Now, again, there'll be maybe a lot of people who disagree and like, hey, I'm all in on Lesnar winning the title and coming back and all this. I'm not. Like, I'm much more intrigued by Cena. I'm much more intrigued by, does Drew McIntyre become the champion at some point in the future? I want to see what Cody does on this run. I want to see Cody and Randy Orton at some point. We've been waiting on that one for over a year. Much more, I think you can tell story-wise, that I'm fascinated by than I would be running back John Cena and Brock Lesnar. But it's all about the money. It's a top-drawing match. Of course, do you want to get 2 matches out of it? You want to get 3 matches out of it. WWE wouldn't mind that. But I think Cena needs to win here. And so I'm going to go with John Cena to win, to cap off WrestlePalooza. And maybe we get a shocking moment in this match. Because like I said, I feel like they want a surprise. They want a big shocking moment somewhere. It's kind of harder to predict on this show if it's not going to be, again, a big championship upset like McIntyre over Cena. Or, McIntyre over Cody. But we'll see. They usually have something up their sleeve. We'll find out if that's the case for WrestlePalooza. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. Turn on your notifications so you know when we do go live at times. We will try to do this on Saturday after WrestlePalooza, do some live reaction depending on how long this show goes. We'll see about that. But again, guys, always appreciate you watching. I know we haven't done as many videos on the channel here over the past month and a half or so. I gave you my reasons. I just thought that there was kind of a dip for me in the quality of WWE. And still watch, still try to give you, some fun analysis and all that. But I also, like, some things are just, the week-to-week WWE television right now, I think is just, it leaves a little bit to be desired. But this is a big show, and let's have some fun with it. So appreciate you guys watching as always. Let me know your predictions for WWE WrestlePalooza.